Hello, 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 hello. All right. So before we get into the presentation, I just want to say a massive thank you. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to be part of this seminar and for me putting this kind of presentation together. I'm honestly hugely grateful. So thank you. My presentation is going to be on novice athletes training for HYROX. I think the goal for me for this presentation is to give you a little bit of clarity on how to best prepare yourself for running your best race when it comes down to HYROX. And to give you some actionable steps. I want you to leave this training and this kind of presentation with a little bit more clarity and confidence in regards to how to program and how to prepare and how to train for HYROX. So that's my goal with this presentation. So I do think, I do hope that I've nailed it. I really do. This is some of the things that we're going to be touching on inside this presentation. So we're going to start with just a quick introduction into me, what I do, my background as a coach, and then we're going to get into like the meat and potatoes of this actual presentation with two things. The first thing is the things that we should and need, I think, need to avoid as a novice or as a beginner HYROX athlete. And then off the back of that, we're going to create a process that actually works, that's been tested numerous times over numerous years with numerous different athletes. And then we're going to round this presentation up with just touching on some key focus points when it comes down to nutrition and some key focus points when it comes down to actual race day strategy itself. Okay. So let's get into this, shall we? So a quick introduction into me. So my name is Steve Fitchet. I own the coaching brand or coaching program, the Performance Academy. I've been coaching for a decade now, which makes me sound older. Which makes me sound old. It really does. Makes me feel old. I'm 10 years deep in this coaching game, which is a bit mad to think. I am a strength and conditioning coach. And inside my coaching program right now, the Performance Academy, we've got a whole diverse group of athletes. It's not just HYROX athletes. I'm not just a HYROX coach. We've got people who are triathletes, who are ultra endurance athletes. And we've got powerlifters in the team. We've got hybrid athletes who are looking to push absolute strength and absolute endurance. And we've got ultra runners, marathon runners, half marathon runners inside the team at the moment. We also do have a solid group of HYROX athletes as well. But my skill set just isn't on just HYROX. I am lucky enough to coach a diverse group of athletes. In terms of my experience and my accolades, if you will, inside the actual HYROX space itself, I've took multiple year one athletes to podiums, to winning HYROX and to world championship qualification as well. And then just a little bit on myself as an athlete, because I do compete, is I've went from a 98-minute HYROX finish time, which was in Glasgow, to a 75-minute HYROX time, which was in Manchester, I believe. So that was within, I think, 7 months, 8 months maybe. You can check me on that. But yeah, 23 minutes of improvement from race one to race two. And that improvement came from the methods that I'm going to share with you in this presentation. All right. So we're going to get into the kind of meat and potatoes of this presentation. We're going to start with the things that I think we shouldn't be doing. Now, what does down to five key things or five frequent things I see and hear a lot about. And I think doing too many simulations in your HYROX prep is not the best way to prepare you for the actual race itself. I completely understand why people want to do simulation because it is going to give you somewhat of a confidence boost. It's going to be that kind of you're going to be able to kind of answer that question of can I actually do a HYROX, especially if you're a beginner, you've never done one before. It's that question of can I actually finish this? And then when you get given an opportunity to do a simulation, you're of course going to take it so that you can kind of prove to yourself, right, I am capable, I am fit enough, I am strong enough to then complete a HYROX, right? But I still don't think that's going to be the best approach. I really don't. if we look at it like this, well, you don't run a marathon before you run your first marathon, official marathon. You don't run an ultra marathon before you run or race an ultra marathon. You don't then PB your deadlift before you enter a powerlifting meet, or weeks before a powerlifting meet, do you? So we should be, as a novice or a beginner, we should be treating it the same. You shouldn't be racing or doing a full max effort simulation weeks before you actually race. Now you might think, right, well, where am I going to get the confidence for race day then? And I think my answer is always going to be the same. It's going to come down to take confidence from the individual components in your training. Are you getting stronger? Yes, good. Are you getting fitter? Yes, good. Then you should be, if you're training correctly, you should be strong enough and fit enough to get yourself through the actual HYROX race itself. Are you improving your run pace? Are you improving your individual kind of station kind of components as well? Things of that nature. Take individual parts of your training and take the confidence from that, rather than doing simulation every single month, or in some people's cases, every single Saturday when they go to like an affiliated gym. We don't want to be doing that. I understand why, but I still don't think it's the best preparation. Your recovery capabilities after a full send max effort simulation, your ability to recover, you're going to need, 3-4 days before you're actually fully recovering. Your CNS system, your central nervous system is recovered, so that you can then get back to some productive training in terms of strength and endurance. Okay. The second thing is a station-focused approach. Again, I completely understand why this is a big focus for people and a big priority for people when they are training for, let's just say, the first HYROX or the first couple of HYROXs. I completely understand it. But we need to understand what HYROX is at its core. The biggest improvement that you're going to make within, or to make the biggest improvement within HYROX, is going to come down to your running ability, not how fast you push your sled or how fast you can ski or row 1 kilometer. Okay, so having the priority or the bulk of your training be focused on the stations, I don't think that's going to be the most productive way. Yes, have elements of the HYROX stations in your training, absolutely. Just don't make it the main focus point. Okay. Number 3, classes and Instagram workouts. Now, I'm going to break this up into 2, right? Classes, I completely understand. I'm not against people going to classes. I've got athletes who go to classes on a frequent basis. The best thing about HYROX, in my opinion, is the community aspect of it. It's like nothing else. It really, really isn't. It's the most supportive community that I think is in the fitness industry right now. The community aspect within HYROX is fantastic. I've met some really, really close friends. I've got some really, really close clients who I've met through doing HYROX. All right. So I'm not saying completely avoid going to classes. I just think limit the amount of times that you actually go to classes. I've got athletes inside the team that before joining, we do 3 to 4 HYROX specific kind of classes per week. And then when it came down to race day, they weren't best prepared for it because they've neglected some key kind of fundamentals within their training, because all they've done is high ski volume, high run volume, high row volume, and a lot of burpee bar jumps and wall balls. It's got its place. It really, really does. That's why I'm saying don't completely neglect it. Still go to them. Still have a community around you. I think it's fantastic. I just think when we look at having a progressive kind of method to your training, and that's what we want. We want to make sure that we are progressing, and we want to see the progression on a week by week, on a block by block kind of basis. With classes, I've never met a gym who does the exact same classes on a week by week basis. They tend to have diversity and a different kind of layout on a week by week basis, which again is good. I just think when you can't accurately measure your progress, I think that's always going to be, it's not going to be a priority then. So by all means, do your classes, still go to them. Just don't make it a priority. Don't have that as your main focus point within your training. And then Instagram workouts, again, I can completely understand. I've had some Instagram workouts that have inspired, or I've seen some Instagram workouts from HYROX athletes, like really high-end HYROX athletes. I've went, you know what, I'm going to take a little bit of that and I'm going to put it in my training, or I'm going to put it in ex-athletes training. So I do understand it. Just don't make it a frequent thing of, right, I need to go for a run today. Let's go look at ex-athletes Instagram and let's go and take a run workout from that and let's just do that. We need to make training specific and tailored to the actual individual. We need to make it. If you're going to get the best out of you, of your potential, and out of the training that you're actually doing, it needs to be tailored and specific to you, your abilities, your skill set as an athlete, your experience as an athlete, etc., etc. So just doing random classes and random Instagram workouts definitely isn't going to be the best approach for you. And that comes down to, that flows next nicely into the fourth point, and that's junk volume. One of the things that I've seen a lot, and boy, I've been guilty of this as well, is just doing more thinking that's going to get me ready for HYROX or for any race that I've done. More isn't better, better is better. We want to be able to see progression, again, on a week by week, on a block by block basis, and doing too much volume will stunt that progression. All right. So we need to make sure that, again, the volume and the training approach to you is specific to you and your experience and your needs and your goals and things of that nature. Okay. And then the fifth one is a short prep time. I think we just need to understand that we need a long runway. The longer the runway, the smoother the takeoff, is something that I say to all my athletes inside the Performance Academy. Give yourself enough time to be ready. So I want us to drop the 4 to 6 to 8 week kind of prep mentality, and we want to be training 12, 16, 20, 22, 24 weeks for a HYROX. The longer you've got to prepare, the better you're going to be come race day. So give yourself enough time. I almost look at it like you're disrespecting the feat that you're about to accomplish or try and accomplish by completing a HYROX. You're disrespecting that feat by not giving yourself enough time to get ready for it. So give yourself enough time, respect the race that you're actually about to do, respect the feat that you're about to accomplish, and give yourself enough time. There's nothing worse than trying to rush the process and start training 4 to 6 weeks out. You're never going to be ready for it. You really, really aren't. You might be ready enough to finish it, but you definitely won't be finishing it at your best. And that's why we're doing this, right? We want to be able to race at your best and to compete at your best. And that comes from giving yourself enough time. A key focus point is understanding what HYROX is at its core. I've touched on it in a previous slide. HYROX at its core is a running fitness race. That's what it is. So the majority of your training volume, if you will, or not even just your training volume, the main priority within your training should be focused on running. It absolutely should be. The best athletes in HYROX have the best running ability. The people who see the biggest improvements in their HYROX time have significantly improved their running ability and running pace and speed. So we need to be focusing and prioritizing our running. Okay, we absolutely need to. And here's just some of the things that I think we should be doing year round, not just within a HYROX prep or anything like that, just year round. If you're someone who trains consistently, then we should be having these 3 key things in your training every single week. And that is strength, that is endurance, and that is power development as well. Okay. If we're then going to make it more specific towards HYROX, what we need to understand is some of the some of the body parts that we want to strengthen so that we are best prepared so our body's best prepared to tackle HYROX. HYROX, your legs are going to take an absolute beating. They really, really are. So we want to have a strong lower body. So squats or squat patterns, deadlift or hinge patterns, overhead work, bench pressing, pull-ups, that upper body strength is never going to be a weakness. And a key thing that I think is an absolute staple in anybody's or any athlete's program is getting strong on one leg. Lower body unilateral movement, single leg work in the form of walking lunges, Bulgarian split squats, reverse lunges, split squats, whatever. It doesn't really matter. Just get really, really strong on one leg. it's going to transfer very, very well over to overall athletic performance. So we just need to make sure that we're not just getting strong with the big three powerlifting movements, that we're getting strong across various different movement patterns as well. Okay. Your endurance work. I think I think a lot of people harp on about zone two, and zone two is fantastic, especially if you're doing it right. We need to be able to build fitness. So your zone two, your aerobic intensity, if you will, is going to be a key fundamental within your training approach. Of course it is. But I think too many people, and again, I've been guilty of this, too many people stay in that zone because it's the comfort zone. All right. We need to be able to not shy away from doing the harder effort work. Okay. So we want to be able to build volume, build capacity. So capacity meaning volume and intensity across the board. So touch your threshold on the odd occasion. Do some max speed work if you're a more experienced endurance athlete. Things of that nature are going to be really, really good. Again, don't just stay in zone two. Do your threshold work, but don't just do your hard effort work. Just look at your zone two, zone three, and four, and then sometimes if you're more experienced, use zone five. So get good and get comfortable and build volume across all intensities. Okay. And something I think that's overlooked, especially when it comes down to HYROX training, is off the feet conditioning. Bike, ski, row, swim. Having off the feet capacity just gives us the ability to really, really, really push volume on a week by week basis without having the added fatigue that push and run volume would give us. If we run in at a high volume, it is going to be very, very taxing. Even if you're a really, really experienced runner or endurance athlete, high volume running is going to be incredibly taxing for you. So I think how do we still build volume and build fitness, but still have the energy and the adaptive capacity to also push your HYROX work and your strength work as well. And I think off the feet conditioning is going to be an absolute it is an absolute staple in people's programming. It needs to be put in on a frequent basis as well. Okay, I've got some athletes who don't do any zone two running or any long runs. We leave the running to more threshold efforts and hill efforts and things of that nature. And their aerobic work tends to be on the bike or in the pool or on the ski or the row. And we've seen, tremendous results from that, from a strength and endurance kind of standpoint as well. So again, off the feet capacity or conditioning should be an absolute staple in your programming. Okay. And the third thing I think we need to be focusing on is power development in the form of plyometrics and what I like to call is strength speed work. So plyometrics being dynamic box jumps, pogo hops, single leg pogo hops, things of that nature are going to be very, very good. Before you go into your heavier kind of compound movements and strength movements. Plyometrics, I start every single strength session with plyometrics, and I get all my athletes to do the same. And I think it is an absolute must. The transfer from progressing your plyometric work to the endurance work is tremendous. So make sure that you're doing plyometrics pre-session. Plus, it does warm up muscle fibers and things. It does get the body ready for some proper heavy work. And then strength speed work. So this is what I would class as moving moderate load through space quick. So speed deadlifts, clean hang pulls, hang cleans, things of that nature, speed pull-ups, if you've got the strength and ability to do that, things of that nature, moving moderate load or moderate load through space very quickly. I think, again, from a power development standpoint, it's an absolute must in anyone's athletic kind of program. Doesn't matter of your level. I think those kind of three key things need to be a staple in your program. So make sure that you've got them in at whatever capacity and that you're able to adhere to and progress from. Okay. Now, when I was putting this presentation together, I was thinking, should I actually give examples of how a weekly training program should work? And I quickly rejected that because, like I've said before, I believe programming should be personalized and individual and bespoke to the actual individual, their lifestyle, their goals, their skill set as an athlete, their experience as an athlete, so on and so forth. So giving you a cookie cutter kind of this is what a Monday to Sunday program looks like isn't going to be specific to you, and I don't want anybody to be taking that away and thinking, right, I'm going to follow this for the next X amount of weeks because Steve said so, and this is what's going to get me ready. So I think just looking at things that I think we should have in our program so that you can structure around your lifestyle and your experience and your goals and skill set as an athlete is going to be the best thing that we can do here. All right. So looking at the endurance side of things, the types of runs that I think we should all be doing as a novice or beginner HYROX athlete. Your zone 2 running, I think, is going to be key. Just time on feet, getting comfortable running 6, 8, 10, 12, 15 kilometers is going to be key for us. I think just from a confidence standpoint as well, is knowing that you can run further than what the HYROX race is. So obviously that being 8 kilometer, the confidence that you're going to take that you can run 12 kilometer, 13 kilometer, 15 kilometer, you're going to be a lot more confident being able to have that time on feet at an aerobic kind of level. Hill repeats. This doesn't mean to say that you need to be sprinting up hills on a frequent basis. Hill repeats could be anything of, yes, tough effort or threshold effort hill repeats, or it could also just be, running Monroes. I think running hills, I can't harp on about it enough. Not only does it build up better endurance in your legs, which then in turn is going to make you a better HYROX athlete, because that's what HYROX is. The more durable your legs are, the more muscular endurance your legs have got, the better you'll be able to handle the stations and then running. Okay. But the other added benefit that hill repeats give us is it improves your running technique. Your cadence speeds up, so your the amount of steps per minute you're actually going to get increases, which is a good thing. Your posture increases and improves. You're in the correct posture for running. Arm movement, things of that nature as well. Learning how to actually pump your arms, things of that nature are going to be fantastic. So that's why I harp on about hill repeats on a frequent basis with all my athletes on social media, and that's why I think we should absolutely have them in anybody's program of any level. Okay. And then threshold efforts. The reason that you put threshold efforts in here is just understanding again what HYROX is. HYROX is a threshold test. We're not going to be upwards of 185, 190, 200 beats per minute with your heart rate. Is going to stay within that kind of threshold range throughout the entire race. Yes, there's going to be peaks and troughs, of course there is, but on average your heart rate is going to be in that threshold zone, in that amber zone. Okay, so we need to focus on improving your ability your ability to hold more volume at that threshold intensity. All right. And then off the feet conditioning as well. Bike, ski, row, swim. Again, just purely from a fatigue management and volume progression kind of standpoint, it's going to be an absolute must in anybody's program. So make sure that you've got some bike in there, some skis, some row. And if you enjoy swimming, you can get some swimming in there as well. Trust me, if you put this in, you're going to be able to you will improve your fitness at a much greater rate than someone who's trying to just progress the running or the run volume. You'll be able to handle a lot more volume on the bike than you will on your feet. Trust me on that. All right. Some key focus points when it comes down to strength, like I've touched on before. HYROX, your legs are going to take an absolute battering. So we need to make sure that the priority movements that we've got within our strength training is lower body focused. Okay, it absolutely must. It's an absolute must. So we broke this into priority and secondary priorities. Okay, so priorities being your squats and your deadlifts. Again, it doesn't need to be like a barbell squat and a deadlift. It could be any sort of hinge pattern, like an RDL, for example, and it could be front squats, it could be low bar squats, it could be a leg press. It doesn't really matter, as long as you've got a squat pattern in there and you've got a hinge pattern or a deadlift kind of pattern in there. Fantastic. Lunge pattern, again, like what I touched on before, you want to be able to get strong on one leg. So walking lunges at above race weight, reverse lunges, static lunges, Bulgarian split squats, whatever it may be, whatever your preference be. Make sure that they're in there and you're getting really, really strong. You're not just doing it for volume's sake, that you're doing it to get really, really strong on one leg. And then a fourth kind of priority that I've seen great success in is vertical pulling strength. I've been able to take athletes who were doing, assisted band or resistance band pull-ups or assisted pull-ups, to bodyweight pull-ups to then weighted pull-ups, and the transfer and the positive transfer it has and the positive impact that it has on your HYROX stations just from improving that pulling strength is night and day difference. It transfers very well over to your ski, to your row, to your sled pull, hold better position on the farmers, and so on and so forth. So make sure that we're improving our vertical pulling strength, okay? Your secondary priorities would be your sled push and your sled pull, not just because it's two stations within HYROX. I've been doing sled pushes and sled pulls for years, long before I even heard about HYROX. Just because I think having concentric only movements in your training is a must for any athlete. Similar to having off the feet conditioning work where you endurance where you can really push volume, having concentric only movements excuse me, concentric only movements in your training, we're able to really push volume without the added fatigue of, if you were to try and add 2 to 3 sets on a heavy back squat, for example, you're going to be pretty taxed. Your central nervous system is going to be taxed. Your legs are going to be really fatigued for days. Whereas with heavy sled pushes and heavy sled pulls, you're not going to see that same amount of fatigue and muscle soreness. So absolute staple in anybody's program. It just so happens that it's obviously 2 stations within HYROX that you obviously want to improve on. Bench pressing, I think, is an absolute must. It is, for me anyway, it is the true test of upper body strength. Nobody will tell me different. I'm a bit of a bro at heart, so bench pressing or horizontal pressing, heavy horizontal pressing is an absolute must. Having a strong upper body is never going to be a bad thing, especially when it comes into HYROX, okay? And then the third secondary priority focus I would have within your strength training is your core. Excuse me. We want to make sure that our core is nice and strong. Just because the transfer it has over to, if you have a strong core, then your ski is going to improve. Yeah, your sled pull is going to improve. You're going to be able to hold better posture within the wall balls and the lunges, and of course the farmers carries. So you want to make sure that we're developing a really strong core. So treat it like you treat a squat, a deadlift, a bench press, your lunges. Load it and progress that load over time. All right, we want to make sure that we're progressively overloading all these movements on a week by week or a block by block kind of basis. All right, don't just do body weight like crunches, for example. Load them, do rotations, heavy rotation work, static holds, isometric holds, things of that nature are going to be very good to develop a strong core. So make sure you put them in. All right, so now getting into the specific work, how to actually structure or when to get really specific within your training. I think at minimum, we should be training 16 weeks for HYROX, or we should be really honing in our training and really ramping up volume and intensity within our training 16 weeks out from competition day, okay? That doesn't mean to say that we start doing hundreds of wall balls per week and 100 meters of burpee broad jumps per session, and we start doing 6K hard rows or hard rowing and hard skiing. I don't think we should be doing that 16 weeks out. I think with that 16 weeks, we should be splitting it into 2 8 weeks. All right, with week 8 and week 16. Week 8 being a down week, and obviously week 16 probably being a taper week before we then compete. All right, so it's 7 weeks of proper progressive work with a down week or a taper week, and then rinse and repeat that. Okay, weeks 1 to 8, I think it should be a 50-50 split between your endurance work and your strength work. I really do. I also think that we should separate your strength and endurance work into individual sessions and not have a mixed modal style of programming. All right. The reason being for this is we want to create the best adaptation so that you can improve that skill. All right. Skill being meaning either strength or endurance. All right. We want to send a clear cellular signal in that session to be right. My body wants to get stronger here, or no, my body wants to be fitter here, or improve threshold, whatever it may be. We want to separate them for as long as possible so that we can get the best adaptive response as possible. All right. And when we do mixed modal style training, yes, we can progress our strength and endurance. Of course, we can in that one session, but you're just not going to progress it at the rate of someone who has a strength session and an endurance session, because we've got time between sessions and we've been able to recover between sessions, so we're able to push absolute strength and absolute endurance. All right. So try and separate them for as long as you possibly can. Okay. And then within that first 8 weeks, I think the bias with your endurance work should be more fitness based, so more aerobic based. You want the majority, not all of it, we want the majority of your endurance work to be aerobic. Your fitness or your aerobic base is going to be the base on which your overall fitness is built from. So the wider the base, the higher the threshold peak. Let's put it like that. Okay. So we want to make sure that the majority of your endurance work is more aerobic based. That doesn't mean to say you're still not going to touch on the harder effort work, just not on a frequent basis. Okay. Then 8 weeks out from competition, weeks 9 to 16. This is where we get really, really specific with your HYROX training. Okay. Your split, I think, should be 70-30, 70% endurance, 30% general strength work. Okay. This is where we start introducing a lot more HYROX specific work. So this is where, just to kind of highlight my own training, for example, this is where I'll start putting like HYROX component finishers at the end of my strength session. So this is where 8 weeks out is normally when I start to look at bringing in mixed modal style training. So I'm doing strength and endurance in the one training session. And I'll start putting, erg finishers, row finishers, ski finishers. I'll put some burpee board jumps in there. I'll put some wall balls at the end of my leg day, for example. Things of that nature. I'll put some, 20-minute AMRAPs or 5 rounds for time kind of finishes at the end of my strength work. Start putting them together. And it's more HYROX specific. So with your strength work, your general kind of strength work, the volume will, of course, decrease so that you can put more volume towards your sled pushes, your sled pulls, your rowing, your lunges, your farmer's carries, and things of that nature. We can't keep the same amount of strength volume that we did from week 1 to then keep it in for a peak phase or 8 weeks out from HYROX, for example, just because we'll have too much junk volume then. We'll have too much volume and a lot of it will be junk volume. So we're not going to see the progression that we did. So general strength volume and intensity will come down, and more HYROX specific workload will go in there so that we've got enough adaptive capacity to still make progression. Okay. And then this is where we introduce more harder effort or more frequent harder effort runs, should I say. So this is where, again, if you've got more experience, you can start looking at max speed work and things of that nature. You start incorporating more threshold interval sessions and harder hill repeats and things of that nature. So your general kind of aerobic volume might decrease, or will actually have to decrease, because you can't increase volume and intensity at the same time. You'll burn yourself out and cook yourself. So your aerobic volume will, of course, decrease, so you've got enough volume, enough adaptive capacity to then push your pace in your harder effort runs. So that's how I would kind of structure your HYROX training. I would start from 16 weeks out, start building some fitness, building some general strength, keep the sessions separate for as long as you can, and then around about 8 weeks, start looking at mixed modal strength and endurance training in your sessions, more HYROX specificity, and harder effort runs on a more frequent basis. All right, that's what I think is going to lead you to having massive success within HYROX. Okay. Some key program considerations, just to kind of wrap this one up here, is never follow a hard session with another hard session. You're not going to get the best out of that second hard session. We need to make sure that we are as recovered as we possibly can between really tough sessions. Okay. So always follow a hard session with, a long bike ride, for example, or a nice and easy, 6 to 8K aerobic run, for example. Okay, never follow a hard run or a hard session with another hard session. It doesn't matter how many training sessions that you have per week. I still think we should have 1 to 2 priority run sessions. I've had some training approaches in my past where I've had 8 to 9 to sometimes even 10 sessions a week, and I've still only had 1 to 2 priority kind of run sessions in there where I'm running at threshold or above threshold. I think more than 2 sessions, you're just cooking yourself. You really, really are. Your recovery capabilities aren't the best when you're looking at 3 to 4 really, really hard sessions. Again, this is all about being progressive. This is all about managing that volume and that intensity so that we're not just doing more for the sake of doing more. Okay. And then the third key point here that I want to mention is just manage the intensity correctly. Understand the stimulus that you're trying to get from that session is going to be the best piece of advice that I can give in this whole presentation. Okay. Now, for anybody who follows me on Instagram will know that I have the hashtag of show the heart rate, and the reason that I created that hashtag and that so many people are actually tagging me in it and using that hashtag is because, again, that point of managing the intensity and understanding the stimulus that you're trying to create. Nobody cares how fast you can run your easy runs. Nobody cares. All right. So don't be one of those people who sends your easy runs and puts on Strava easy run, but your heart rate's fucking, 170 or above. We want to make sure that you're managing the intensity correctly so that you're creating the right adaptation for that session. So if it's an easy run, make sure it's easy. If that means it's a 7-minute kilometer pace, then that means it's a 7-minute kilometer pace. Doesn't matter. You're there to build fitness. All right. So manage the intensity correctly. And that goes with your strength work as well. When you're about 8 weeks out, we don't want to be maxing out your back squat or your deadlift or anything like that. We want to be looking at staying within a 7 to 8 out of 10 effort within your strength work. Okay, so manage the intensity correctly. And then just the final two slides here is we're going to touch on a little bit about nutrition. Now, I'm fully aware that there's going to be other kind of nutritionists in this seminar who'll take a bigger, deeper dive into nutrition, but I just wanted to kind of touch on this to share some kind of basic points when it comes down to your nutrition, okay? As athletes, we need to eat like athletes, and athletes eat high carbohydrate diets. They really, really do. Okay, we need to make sure that one, we're fueling for the workload that we're about to occur during the session, and that we're then replenishing those energy stores, your glycogen stores post session. And that the only way that we're going to do that is by high carbohydrate consumption, and then moderate protein as well. I think the fitness industry love to push really high protein diets, and it's not wrong. It has its place for certain individuals, but having 1 to 2 grams of protein per pound of body weight is way too much. Way too much. A calculation for your protein that I would love you to all follow is 1.65 grams of protein per kilogram of body mass. So not lean body mass, body mass. How much do you weigh on the scale? Times that by 1.65, and that is your protein amount that you should be staying within. All right. As a novice, as a beginner, we need to be ditching the massive carb load the night before race day. Yes, carb load. If you are an individual who has been in a calorie deficit, an energy deficit for a prolonged period of time, and you've lost a lot of body weight or you've lost a lot of body fat, then yes, start carb loading. But carb load 7 to 10 days before race day. Don't do it the night before race day. Trust me, it'll come back and bite you in the arse on race day. We don't want to be having a massive amount of carbohydrates before. If you're someone who's been sat at maintenance or in a surplus, you do not need a massive carb intake or massive carb meal the night before you race. So don't order 3,000 pizzas. You don't need it. All right. Test your race day strategy. Test it weeks and weeks and weeks before. Know what you're going to be having or know what agrees with your digestive system. A couple hours before you train, half an hour before you train, and then intra fueling as well. What carbohydrates and how much carbohydrates can you consume during an hour to 100-minute session. Okay. Practice it, practice it, practice it. Know exactly what you need for race day. It's going to limit so much stress on race day itself. Okay. And then just have similar or the same foods. The amount of people that completely change their nutrition the week of competition, it baffles me. Don't do it. Eat the same things or eat very, very similar things. You do not want to be changing up your nutrition a couple of days before you race, because your digestive system, you may regret it, because obviously nerves and things like that can impact digestion. So we don't want to be changing up too much. We want to make sure that that's nailed weeks and weeks before race day. All right. And then race day itself. HYROX do a fantastic job of giving us the race layout days and days before we actually race. So know the layout, know the course, know how many laps you need to do of the run track, know where the state, where each station is, know where the board is, so you can look at your name and how many laps you've actually done. Know the course like the back of your hand. The amount of people that get lost during HYROX or run extra laps or yeah, is don't do it. Don't be one of those people. Be prepared. Be prepared before race day. Know exactly the race layout. Another thing is don't spend all day at the venue. I've spoken to people who have been racing at 7 p.m. at night, but they've been there at 10 a.m. and they've spent all day at the venue. Please do not do that. You're going to be around that electric environment all day. Your adrenaline is going to spike, which then when it's time for you to race, you're going to have a massive adrenaline dump. You definitely do not want that. So don't spend all day at the venue. I actually get my athletes to go an hour before they actually race. They check in the day before, if they're able to, of course. They check in the day before. If they don't, then they try and check in as early as they can on the day, and then they get gone. They get out of that venue. And then they go back an hour before they train. They go an hour before they're about to race, just so that they can put their bag in, they can get all stretched out, they can get warmed up, and then they can get their mind right. But spending all day there is going to tax you. It's going to tax you when you're racing. Okay. Know your fuel timing as well. This just comes into practicing your fueling strategy. So just know when you're going to be eating, how close to race you can actually eat, and it not negatively affect you, and know what you're obviously going to be eating before you race as well. Okay. And then the final point I'm going to leave you with is it's a long race. Pace yourself. You're going to be on that start line. Adrenaline and heart rate is going to spike. As soon as that clock starts counting down from 10, your heart rate is going to spike. Then what typically happens, if you're anything like me anyway, you absolutely gun-ho and you sprint. Don't do that. It is a long race. And the back half of HYROX is actually quicker than the front half. So pace yourself. Those first couple of stations and first couple of laps, take at 85% if you need to. Calm that heart rate down. Calm the nerves down. Just settle yourself into the race. It's a long race. For any novice or beginner, it's going to potentially be 75 minutes plus for yourself. So we need to make sure that we're pacing ourselves as well as we possibly can. All right. So that is the presentation there. If you have enjoyed this presentation, then please do not hesitate to reach out. The best place or the best platform to get me on is my Instagram, and this is my Instagram right here. And again, if you've got any questions or anything like that regarding this, that you want to ask me, and again, please just DM me. My DMs are always open. So yeah. But yeah, other than that, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was informational. I hope there was actionable steps that you can take away from this. But yeah, other than that, again, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to do this presentation within this seminar. It's greatly appreciated. But yeah, other than that, we'll see you later.